This is the paint area, so welcome to the paint area. Paint will always be set up in this corner of the room. The reason it is down here is because it is also close to the sink area. Okay, so there are some supplies that are located on the sink for the paint station, and then there are some supplies that are located over here. All right? It's also easy because all my paint is stored in there, so when I have to refill paint, I'm not walking across the room and making a bigger mess, okay? Now, the only thing that is not located over here are smocks. Smocks are located, we used them the other day when we did our gesture drawings if you felt like you wanted to cover your clothes. I would say any paint you use in my classroom, I would put a smock on. Because even black watercolor paint that is water soluble can still stain your clothes. If you have a light shirt on or a white shirt on, it's not going to come out, okay? I have signs here that say when using any paints, you must wear a smock. They're spread out so you can see them as you're getting your supplies. Okay, so the first thing I want to tell you about is if you can kind of direct your attention to the sinks over here. At the sink counter, I have brushes that will be out. There will be cups for water. Juliana, will you grab me a paint palette? Yep. And I have paint palettes. So these are the three things that you're going to need to pick up. Clear water. Don't fill these right to the top because you probably have to walk to your table and then they slosh around. So fill them up reasonably. As you're working, you can dump them out and add new water, dump them out, especially if you're working with dark colors. It kind of looks like a strainer that you might have at your house where you put your plates, is where the paint palettes will be found. Okay? They need to look like this when you're done. So you're going to pick up these supplies to start. You can then, and that's if you're using wet acrylics or wet temperas. So these are all, they're kind of rubbing off. I'm going to go back over them. Temperas are labeled on the top and are all in one container. Acrylics are labeled on the top as well, and they are in one container. When you choose the amount of paint and the colors you're going to do, I have some rules that I will put up here. How many of you had Miss Hanson at Cushing? Who can remember what her rules were for getting paint? Megan?
Always take less than you think you need.
Exactly. Because when you fill up a whole palette and you run out of time, where does that paint going to go? Down my drain, most likely, because we can't save it, okay? So I say about the amount of a dime or a nickel. I would also get, if you have two colors that you're going to use, say I'm using yellow and blue, I would get those colors, and you're also welcome to always have white and black so that you can lighten them or darken them. If you know you're just going to use it straight out of the container, then just use the two colors. Does that make sense? Okay? So those are the supplies and my expectations for these types of paints. Okay? Now, I also have tempera cakes. I have some in fluorescent, I have some in metallic, and I have some in sort of the regular colors. If you are going to be mixing new colors, because obviously I don't have an orange on here, you can also get a paint palette to mix and blend your paints on here. These are like watercolors, only they're much brighter. When they dry a little dull and chalky. So if you don't like the look of that, this might not be the paint for you. Okay? Guys, can you stop, please? Thank you. You would also need a cup of water and a paintbrush to use those. You don't always need the paint palette, though. I have watercolors. Watercolors, I have some metallics as well. I believe I have some neons that I will get out also. Watercolors are mixed together with water to make them work. So they come in, like solid form, and they're kind of sticky. You want to make sure that you use a lot of water. We will do some demos next time on how to use watercolor paint. But when you're getting this, you can, if these are dirty, you can again get a paint palette to mix colors on, or you can gently run this under water and wipe it off with paper towel to clean it. Again, they are really bright colors. Sometimes you want to mix a variety of greens if you're doing like a tree and layering colors, so you'll want to make new colors, okay? Again, a lot of water and a little bit of paint. This is plenty of paint to paint things in red. A little bit goes a long way. similar to these types of paints, okay? I also have a variety of tools that you can use to do watercolor as well. And these are known as there's Caran d'Ache and there's Karat. These are Stadler. These are pretty nice watercolor pencils. So you could take your drawing, you could color it in with the colored pencil, and then you could take just clear water and a paintbrush, and you can blend your colors together. Okay? Trying to think. You can, in some of these, you can see sort of my pencil marks, but they will blend out the more water you have, and the more slow you release the color from there, it will blend together. This is another product. These look like the oil crayons we use. They're a little bit fatter. I used them on one of my posters that I did when I did the Unity, those circles. These are really easy to work with. They kind of layer similar to the oil crayons real easily. They're very soft and can be smudged. You can color with them exactly how you want, and then again you could go back with a wet paintbrush with clear water and you could blend them out. These are kind of what the watercolor crayons look like. So I have samples of what they all look like as you start to make choices of what you're going to fill your drawings in with. Okay? I'm trying to think if there was anything else. Oh, I wanted to show you, so there's like three varieties, three or four amounts of watercolor pencils you can choose from. In watercolor, you can add salt to your paint, and I will demo that. That gives you sort of a texture in your paint because the salt will repel the paint, so it looks kind of spotty and really cool. So we will talk a little bit about that later. Now, when you are a person painting, I told you the supplies you need to get to start painting. At the end of class, when it is time to clean up, my expectation is that you are responsible for everything that you used. Painted images or pictures or drawings, the drying racks are here. Please make sure your names are on everything because I have 3 classes of you and I want to be able to locate it. Because as they dry, I will pull them off and make them into the right pile for you. Okay? So drawings go there. If you have gotten paint on your table, you are required to sponge it off. We talked a little bit about sponging after the charcoal where I want you to squeeze the sponge out. It should be damp. So we're not dripping water on the floor, we're not leaving a puddle on our table where other books could go or someone else's artwork could be, because that will damage it. Paint brushes and paint palettes, if you're using these, and the cups of water. If you're using these types of paints, a lot of times we get paint on the inside rim of our cups. You want to use your hands or a sponge to wipe this out. You will want to rinse your brush clean. Under water, I kind of press it, make sure the bristles. You don't need to really go like that, that will damage it, but you want to rub it out. You're going to use your fingers, especially if the paint seems really thick, or if you happen to be using something with glue for collage, that will get stuck in there too. This should be sponged as well if it's really caked on there. You should be able to get everything off of it. Okay? After you've cleaned all those things, in order to leave the classroom, I need to see these. So you need to find me wherever I am in the classroom and say, Mrs. Yaeger, here are my supplies. Are they clean enough? And I'll say, yep, they look great. You can put them on the drying rack to dry over here. There's that sink strainer over there. You can turn the cups up. These guys slide in like a plate would. And the paintbrushes go in a special little rack that the paintbrushes are facing up for. Why do we keep our paintbrushes facing up? Why is that important when they dry? We don't want them like this. We want them like this. Nate?
So they get like air?
They get air. If we don't do that, they could get moldy and stinky, and then I'm throwing them out. Okay? If I've seen everything, your workspace is cleaned up, then you'll be able to clean up the rest of your items, and you'll be able to leave when the bell rings. If you're still working on stuff, if I have to give you a pass, that's fine. I don't want to have to do it because I try my best to give you 10 minutes for cleanup, especially when we start working with tools that require more work. Okay? Please do not leave things in the sink. Okay, especially if there's paint on there, someone could turn it on and all that paint will splash out of the sink because the water comes up pretty forcefully. Okay, I'm trying to think. Sponge. Yep. If you noticed, back next to my table over there, it says cleanup, and then it tells you the table. So your home base is the table where you always will be cleaning up from, and I will rotate the jobs. At the end of class, we will all kind of spread out. If you didn't paint, but you're assigned to the sink, you're going to check and make sure that everything's cleaned up. You may have to help just wipe down the water that sits on the sink because it likes to puddle because they're old and it splashes everywhere. Okay? So that would be the other expectation. I can show you how to replace the paper towels too if it feels like that's empty. I can help with that. And or the soap. If you run out, let me know. Paint, water cups, paint brushes. That's kind of it. Any questions? This should kind of be the same as how you did it in elementary school. It's not new stuff. You do get to use a few new tools that are a little bit more useful for as you're getting older. Okay? Any questions? Good. All right. You can cut me, Julie.